Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast, and a happy Independence Day to my fellow Americans. Here in week 48, I am continuing my 3-week commemoration of Barnard Hill's portrayal of Théoden by reading a few of my favorite passages about the King of Rohan. Now, last week, we met him and saw him go from a man so bent with age that he seemed almost a dwarf to a bold king who lifted his blade and swung it shimmering and whistling in the air. In hindsight, I wish I'd been able to finish a long-expected party in 1 or 2 fewer readings, because it is so incredibly difficult to pick just 3 sets of passages about Théoden. But I think I'll manage, and I'm going to start with a brief moment that really illustrates what we read last time. Now, they're all headed towards the fords of Isen, where they hope to find Théoden's men that had been holding back the hosts of Saruman at the fords. 2 days into their ride, at the very end of the day, a horseman comes with some bad news. Isengard's been empty, and the men were defeated. He asks where Éomer is and suggests he should return to Edoras, and that's where I'll pick up. Théoden had sat silent, hidden from the man's sight behind his guards. Now he urged his horse forward. "Come, stand before me, Ceol," he said. "I am here. The last host of the Eorlingas has ridden forth. It will not return without battle." The man's face lightened with joy and wonder. He drew himself up, and then he knelt, offering his notched sword to the king. "Command me, lord," he cried, "and pardon me. You thought I remained in Medgiseld, bent like an old tree under winter snow. So it was when you rode to war. But a west wind has shaken the boughs," said Théoden. "Give this man a fresh horse. Let us ride to the help of Erkenbrand." Ah, I love that. Now, after this, Gandalf advised him to ride straight to Helm's Deep, preparing for battle in a place of defense. He does so, and battle comes. Thousands upon thousands of orcs. The field is described as boiling and crawling with black shapes. The fight was not going well. The wall had been taken. The enemy was in the deep. Théoden's doubt grew, and we read, "I fret in this prison," said Théoden. "If I could have set a spear in rest, riding before my men upon the field, maybe I could have felt again the joy of battle, and so ended. But I serve little purpose here." "Here at least you are guarded in the strongest fastness of the Mark," said Aragorn. "More hope we have to defend you in the Hornburg than in Edoras, or even at Dunharrow in the mountains." "It is said that the Hornburg has never fallen to assault," said Théoden. "But now my heart is doubtful. The world changes, and all that once was strong now proves unsure. How shall any tower withstand such numbers and such reckless hate? Had I known that the strength of Isengard was grown so great, maybe I should not so rashly have ridden forth to meet it, for all the arts of Gandalf. His counsel seems not now so good as it did under the morning sun." "Do not judge the counsel of Gandalf until all is over, Lord," said Aragorn. "The end will not be long," said the king. "But I will not end here, taken like an old badger in a trap. Snowmane and Hasufel and the horses of my guard are in the inner court. When dawn comes, I will bid men sound Helm's horn, and I will ride forth. Will you ride with me then, son of Arathorn? Maybe we shall cleave a road, or make such an end as will be worth a song, if any be left to sing of us hereafter." Even though he was no longer as confident in Gandalf's counsel, his determination and his courage stood out here in what is a pure Beowulfian moment, right? I mean, the circle of light, backs against the wall. This is, I'm going to die, but I'm going to go out in the right way. I'm going to do this the way I decide. But then when the sun rises, we read, "But even as the gate fell, and the orcs about it yelled, preparing to charge, a murmur arose behind them, like a wind in the distance, and it grew to a clamor of many voices crying strange news in the dawn. The orcs upon the rock, hearing the rumor of dismay, wavered and looked back. And then, sudden and terrible, from the tower above, the sound of the great horn of Helm rang out. All that heard that sound trembled. Many of the orcs cast themselves on their faces and covered their ears with their claws. Back from the deep the echoes came, blast upon blast, as if on every cliff and hill a mighty herald stood. But on the walls men looked up, listening with wonder, for the echoes did not die. Ever the horn blasts wound on among the hills. Nearer now and louder they answered one to another, blowing fierce and free. "Helm! Helm!" the riders shouted. "Helm is arisen and comes back to war! Helm for Théoden king!" And with that shout the king came. His horse was white as snow, golden was his shield, and his spear was long. At his right hand was Aragorn, Elendil's heir. Behind him rode the lords of the house of Eorl the Young. Light sprang in the sky, night departed. "Forth, Eolingas!" With a cry and a great noise they charged. Down from the gates they roared, over the causeway they swept, and they drove through the hosts of Isengard as a wind among grass. Behind them from the deep came the stern cries of men issuing from the caves, driving forth the enemy. Out poured all the men that were left upon the rock, and ever the sound of blowing horns echoed in the hills. On they rode, the king and his companions. Captains and champions fell or fled before them. Neither orc nor man withstood them. Their backs were to the swords and spears of the riders, and their faces to the valley. They cried and wailed, for fear and great wonder had come upon them with the rising of the day. So King Théoden rode from Helm's Gate and clove his path to the great dike. Folks, thank you for joining me for this week's Third Age Thursday. Come back next week as I conclude Series 6 by reading one more passage or two about Théoden King. And check out patreon.com/Tolkien Times to learn how you can support the show, get an ad-free feed, join my content council, get a bonus episode every week, and more. And join me again tomorrow on today's Tolkien Times for more from the Lay of Leithian on First Age Friday. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Please follow or subscribe in your podcast apps, and follow @Tolkien Times on all your social media. Finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.